Welcome to another episode of...
I talked when you started. Go ahead.
Welcome to another episode of Co-Pilots. We have some great stuff lined up today. We are doing a segment where people have to run across an inflatable bridge without falling into the moat on either side.
And as they go, just to keep it in theme, they have to name their favorite television shows. And if they name enough popular shows, then the drawbridge is not full.
And the other thing is, as they're running, they are being shot in the face with a Nerf gun.
So it's not going to work that well on a podcast, but it'll be very interesting for us to describe.
Those soft sounds you'll hear are people being hit in the face with Nerf bullets. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Co-Pilots. I am Sean Conroy.
And I'm Andy Secunda.
On this podcast, we talk about TV pilots, the first episodes of television shows. Sometimes pilots become long-running series. Others don't make it past that first episode.
We're going to talk about all of them. The great pilots, the bad pilots, the weird pilots, the forgotten pilots. We are TV writers, but it should be noted that we are the dumbest TV writers you know, so all of these are just our dumb opinions.
So dumb. So we have a show we want to talk about today, and it is our first foray, I think, into Saturday morning television.
That's right.
From the 1970s and 80s.
Now, neither of us knew. You didn't know anything about this, right? You never heard of it. I had never heard about it either. We had sort of had to have a last-minute change because we were going to do BJ and the Bear, and then we realized it was not accessible, which shocked me. Even
can't get BJ and the Bear anywhere.
I mean, you can order it on DVD, which I think we should at some point. But it's we're trying to pick shows that are easily accessible by the audience, even if it's a streaming purchase.
I was excited to do BJ and the Bear.
Me too.
I was a big BJ and the Bear fan.
I definitely enjoyed it, and even in remembering it, I was sort of like, why did I enjoy it? Is it just the monkey? Is it the guy is like hanging out with a lot of ladies? Like, what is it?
Yeah. Is it the Landers sisters?
Were they just guests or were they ongoing?
I think they were on it a number of times.
Oh, really? I guess that makes sense. Whatever
and also,
the case.
I just idolized the life, of like, who knows where you're headed, and you just kind of roam and you do whatever you need to do for $1.25 a mile. You'll truck anything anywhere, and you don't have a ultimate destination. Like, even at the age of however old I was then, 46, I knew someday I just wanted to be a rambler,
And now look at you, Sean. Mm-hmm. You're just an average schmo stuck in his apartment,
that
not on the road
for 15 years.
Yeah, unmoving. Finding no new adventures except the ones that walk through the door.
This chair is on wheels, so I can roll around in it.
It's not the same thing, Sean.
I don't even get up from it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. But what's interesting is, in a similar fashion, we have chosen kind of a trucker show.
Absolutely.
It's definitely a traveling vehicle show. Its traveling vehicle is really a genre of TV.
Battlestar Galactica.
Right. Route 66. Knight Rider.
Car 54, where are you?
I think that was local. Wasn't that local?
It's still moving.
It was moving, but it wasn't going from town to town.
Cars.
Cars is a movie. I guess there's traveling shows, and then there's traveling vehicle shows where the vehicle itself is sort of what it's built around.
These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise?
That's a traveling vehicle show, sure. Anyway, I was just poking around trying to find a replacement for BJ and the Bear, and I thought, what about a sci-fi show from sort of a similar era? Because this came out in 76, Ark II, and BJ and the Bear, I think, was 81-ish. And I don't know, it's because I love sort of vintage sci-fi, and this is in the zone of like TV. I guess you could say the same for movies, but especially TV vintage sci-fi has this handmade quality of the budgets probably weren't going to be that great. They didn't have CG. It was all like these analog buttons and weird costumes.
Practical effects.
And I was kind of shocked that this show was so involved. I thought it was going to be, I mean, even though it has hilarious effects and it's all very like kind of like almost kids theater, let's put on a show, it's much more involved and it's much more ambitious in terms of the world it's presenting than I thought it was going to be.
I didn't totally understand what they were going for in terms of tone. Like, is it supposed to be dramatic or funny or just adventure. I was confused the entire time.
Well, this is kind of what I was fascinated by, and especially with the alternate show that I was thinking of, which was Land of the Lost, is a similarly toned show, although, even darker, that they're both half-hour kids shows that were on Saturday morning. This one isn't as terrifying as Land of the Lost, so I definitely want to do Land of the Lost at some point. But this is a post-apocalyptic. It's built on the failure of humanity.
Right.
And you're right. It's like, well, I guess these parts are goofy, and then these parts are sort of dark, and these parts are sort of not hard sci-fi, but like sci-fi adventure show.
Right.
You're right. It's all over the place.
And just to back up for a sec, were you a Saturday morning television watcher?
Obsessed.
Mm-hmm.
It was the center of my life.
Right.
More than my family, for sure.
Television was a weird thing in my house growing up where my parents did not allow us to watch it. That was the weird thing.
Why?
I think it was a moral corruption of some sort, or just better ways to activate your mind. Like, I think there was a lot of factors to it.
The second thing I certainly I get. The first thing, it feels like, unless they also kept you from watching evening TV.
They did.
They did. You weren't allowed to watch TV at all?
No.
What?
We were allowed to watch 2 hours a week. We had to sit down with the TV guide on Sunday mornings and decide which 2 hours a week we were allowed to, we wanted to watch.
This is shocking.
And eventually, when I got to be probably, I don't know, 11 or 12 or, my early teens, the rule was slightly relaxed and I was allowed to watch. Oh, this was the other thing. We had to choose the 2 hours, and it could only be on Friday or Saturday nights. It could not be on a school night.
This sounds like this is more about your convenience for your parents than anything that they couch.
Why would it not be convenient for them to let us watch TV?
I guess that's true.
The ultimate babysitter.
I guess that's true. I guess it's sort of like, maybe, first of all, I don't know how much your parents watch
They
TV.
did have a timed safe they had to get the TV out of for us to watch it. That only opened once a week, so maybe it was a convenience thing.
See, I don't know if that's a bit. That's no more crazy than the other thing. But I don't know. Do they watch?
You don't
TV
know that
a lot?
it's a bit that my parents kept their TV in a timed safe.
I mean, the idea that they would let what do you have, like 17 brothers and sisters?
Yes.
I believe.
Yes.
The fact that you would let, and also, how did they choose between them? Like, who got to choose?
Watch which thing? Well, I think
like each child got 2 hours and then they could watch what they wanted?
Yeah, and if you wanted to watch something that was at the same time as something somebody else wanted to watch, you were SOL,
Yeah, but who took priority?
Primogeniture. I was the eldest boy, as they said on Succession this week. But I think we were all sort of in a. First of all, it was also limited by bedtime, so it was literally like 8 to 10 p.m. on Fridays and Saturdays.
Okay.
What's on during those times? You only had 3 networks. You had 3 choices at 8, 3 choices at 9.
So it limited it.
Yeah. So it wasn't like there was going to be a lot of controversy about what we wanted to watch. But I also think the system relaxed a bit once children 14, 15, and 16 came along and people were allowed to watch. I mean, that's the nature of parenthood, is that as the younger kids get older, the rules change,
I feel like also Friday, and maybe I'm wrong about this. I'd have to refresh my memory. I feel like Friday and Saturday nights weren't great nights for our age group, the age group you're describing, watching TV.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you what we generally watched,
okay.
And it actually is connected to what we're going to talk about. One thing we used to watch all the time was the Donnie and Marie show.
Sure, watching two good, clean brother and sister.
I mean, one of them was a little bit country, the other was a little bit rock and roll.
Yeah, she was more country, right?
She was country. He was rock and roll. Right. Yeah,
they're really covering their bases there.
I mean, there's a huge swath of America that's picked up in those two things.
They were not cool, right?
Oh, they were the coolest.
I remember them being cool, but like to an actual rock and roller, they're thinking.
No. They were doing like Lawrence Welk versions of rock songs.
Okay, yeah.
But it was a variety show, so there was always like fun guests on the show, and
Sure.
all that kind of stuff. And so we used to watch that. And then Friday night was also Dukes of Hazzard was on.
Oh, yeah, that fits into the thing. That was another thing I was considering maybe we do.
And that applies to Ark II because the guy who created Ark II was a writer on Dukes of Hazzard.
Well, this is the thing I kind of wanted to get into a little bit.
Which just to finish up on that
Yeah.
thought, the very first shot of Ark II is a classic Dukes of Hazzard shot.
That's true.
Which
Also,
is the camera in the road and the vehicle driving over the camera.
which I believe is also a shot in the opening credits of Knight Rider also. It is a classic 70s, early 80s kind of like...
Moving vehicle show.
Yeah, moving vehicle show. But Dukes of Hazzard, at least by the way that I'm defining it, is not a moving vehicle show, even though it's a lot
it wasn't. Yeah.
They just stayed in town the whole time.
Right.
Yeah, but it was created by Martin Roth, and you're right. It's just a journeyman television writer.
Mm-hmm.
I believe this is the only show he ever created, which is sort of an interesting one to be here. Like, finally,
This is his legacy.
This is my vision.
Yeah.
No more following the showrunner. Now I can do what I want to do.
Take that, Dukes of Hazzard. Yeehaw. Crazy cooter coming at you no more.
Reviving the classics, the Bible, the Noah's Ark story, Oliver.
Yes. It was kind of insane. But yeah, so he got off Dukes of Hazzard and he wrote fucking Ark II.
And Ted Post, who was the director of the episode, helped him develop it. I'm not sure what his... it just says it.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah, I'm behind you, Martin.
Keep
Come
going.
on, Marty.
Keep going.
Good job.
Deadlines.
And Ted Post actually, he did some decent. He did Beneath the Planet of the Apes. He did Magnum Force. He did, he had a real film career. And so it suggests, because this show, even though it's clearly one of these, 70s sci-fi fantasy shows on a threadbare budget to a certain degree, they knew where to put the money. Like the weird Ark II vehicle looks kind of awesome. The little vehicle that comes out of the side of it.
Oh, you're talking about the Roamer?
Yes, the Roamer, thank you, is also awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Which was apparently a Brubaker box. Have you seen the original Brubaker box vehicles? Which I don't know who made them.
I'm only familiar with Brubaker, the Robert Redford movie where he goes into the prison to become the warden.
Think that's what inspired it. Is like, hey, we got to build a thing
Get Redford in here.
That's good enough for Brubaker to drive around. And it was very futuristic and kind of almost looked like, whatever that generation's Tesla Cyberbox.
Uh-huh.
But they all look awesome. All the switches are awesome. The costumes are perfect. 70s kind of Logan's Run. So I don't know.
Well, and they also
design.
had I didn't read up on this, so I'm not sure how they did it, but they also had all that jetpack footage.
Actual 70s
Mm-hmm.
jetpacks. Once again, prompting the eternal comedic trope. Well, where are our jetpacks? This is in the 70s.
Why are we not all traveling by jetpack?
The classic clam, but it's true and it's frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
But they had it in this, and you could I assume it's like the money went to, because everything else is just like they're shooting by the side of the road. But that's like they got the jetpack, they got the vehicle, they got the costumes, they got the Roamer, and that's all you need.
They got all those computerized things where the numbers change quite a bit.
That's true. I think they're Geiger counter.
You roll through a bunch of different numbers.
Yeah. I mean, that may have felt like the future to me.
Mm-hmm.
But it's produced by Filmation, which did, an endless amount of
A lot of Saturday morning stuff.
Saturday morning. So, and going back to your question, yeah, I was obsessed. I was always just like getting up early and just like, oh, this one and then this one. For some reason, it was really like I would consume it like candy.
Right.
So it's interesting that your parents robbed you of that thrill.
No, when I would sleep over at my friend's house, my best friend, that was the whole draw of it to me. We were best friends, but the real fun of it was that if I stayed over at his place on Friday night, we could get up on Saturday morning and eat sugared cereals and watch Saturday morning cartoons, which we were not allowed in my house.
Wow.
And then later, as I got older, my baby brother became old enough to go in. Like we would stand outside in the hallway while my parents were still in bed, and we would force my youngest brother to go in and say, "Can we turn on the TV?" at like 7:30 on Saturday morning.
Because the youngest brother was the one who was cute enough that he might have a shot.
He would get away with it, right?
Right. Yeah.
And he was the easiest for us to push around.
Right. You could manipulate.
Not no more. I can tell you that.
Is he the tallest?
No, but
Are you the tallest?
no, but
Sean's a tall man.
yeah.
You can't see it.
Everybody's pretty tall.
Your parents aren't that tall.
I mean, my mom is pretty tall for a woman. She's 7'4".
It is tall. Anyway, it started at the in the fall of 76, and it went 15 episodes that ended the end of 76, but that was in repeats the next couple of years.
Yeah, it started right when everybody was in the middle of their bicentennial hangover.
So they were they were like, I don't have time for this weird sci-fi show.
25th century. How about the 18th century? That's what I'm focused on.
Yeah. I mean, I guess let's
get into it. Okay.
Ark II.
Ark II. So one of the things I really enjoyed about this pilot was that there was basically I forget what he called it. Maybe not. I don't remember what he called it, but it was basically Captain Kirk's captain's log from Star Trek.
Yes.
Like reading aloud what he was putting into the log to give us all sorts of exposition.
Yes. Which is hilarious sci-fi gobbledygook. Just like we're in Sector
We're in the
2
25th century. Yeah, we're in Sector 2. The Earth has gone to shit because people have allowed it to become too polluted.
Yes.
And
wars. It was sort of a catch-all in their it's just like, see, millions of years Earth was fertile and rich. Pollution and waste. Civilization fell into ruin. Oh, I guess it was mostly just
pollution.
Ecological.
Yeah. Well, that was Marty Roth's big thing was recycling.
I mean, he never stopped talking about it.
You never saw Marty without a bag full of bottles.
He drove Ted Post crazy.
Yeah.
Just
Post was like, Jesus, Marty, take it to the center, please. Get your nickels back.
I will say it's remarkably progressive for 76. There's a multicultural cast. It's very diverse.
The four main cast is very multicultural, including a simian.
I was gonna say, who's the fourth? And multicultural in terms of like the Fagin's flies, his children that he follow him around. And at the end, there's a big union message.
The workers rebel.
They really slip it in, which has nothing to do with anything.
Yeah, we never even saw work. I mean, we saw workers, but they never interacted with anybody until the very end.
And at the very end, they're sort of radioed in, which is a TV term for just having somebody describe something instead of showing it. That's just like, and then the workers rose up and took a dick down the overlords. Like, what? What workers?
Now, I will say I was only able to watch this once, so I feel like there's stuff I missed, subtleties I did not pick up on along the way. But it felt to me like the first thing that happened was the captain of Ark II, whose name I believe is Jonah.
That's correct.
Because that's the guy who lived in the whale and didn't have anything to do with the Ark.
That's also a really good point.
And Jonah is a term for a guy who's bad luck on board a ship. Just,
Is that true?
Yes.
Oh.
So I'm sure that plays into the show later on. They find out that they have to kick Jonah. They used to throw Jonahs off the ship so they drowned.
Is that from your Horatio Hornblower obsession? Or
I don't have a Horatio Hornblower obsession. That guy is second rate.
Oh, right. Who's the one you like?
I don't want to get into it right now. But anyway, Jonah says we're in this Sector B or whatever he says because there's a group of parentless children called the Flies,
right,
and we've been sent to deal with them or something like that.
It's very unclear, and I kind of feel
that's why I'm saying I feel like I must have missed something because there's no like central command or anything like that.
The statement he makes, and I wish I could remember what it was, it implies that they're, to me, much more dangerous than I think they wind up being.
We're supposed to go give them some discipline. He says something about discipline,
right,
for these parentless children,
right. And it's sort of interesting that they're set up almost at the beginning as the antagonist because immediately their power is taken from them because there's the other character that I assume you're going to get to next.
Right. Oh, you mean the head of the parentless children?
Yes.
Yes. Even before that, I find it interesting that the parentless children ranged in age from about 8 to about 47.
They do. Yeah, some are fully bearded.
I just thought it was funny to
Parentless children.
Think of those guys being like, I can't believe I have no parents.
Well, also the character later...
Gary, you're middle-aged.
The character later refers to... or is it in the opening? Yeah, no, it's in the opening. The opening description as the main crew of the Ark is young people, and it's like, well, one of them's easily 28 minimally.
Yeah.
So
Right. So we meet the crew.
Yes.
Which is Ruth.
Yes.
And
I guess they're young people compared to an older television writer that has been waiting his whole career to
right. Anybody who's
this.
younger is younger compared to someone who's older, I think.
It's almost mathematically always true.
Ruth, who wears very, very sexy high-heeled boots, because that's what you do when you live in a post-apocalyptic world.
That's true.
Samuel, who's a young person, and Adam, who is a chimpanzee of indeterminate age.
No, isn't the chimpanzee Moochie?
Oh, I thought his name was Adam.
I think Adam might be the name of the monkey himself. You're not dignifying the actor.
Oh, I'm not giving him credit for playing the role?
Oh, wait, maybe I'm wrong. You know what? I'm wrong. Sean is right. You're going to see this a lot. Sound the bell, Kevin.
Sing the song and sound the bell.
Kevin, sing the Sean is right.
Let us hear the ululations of the masses.
Sing the Sean is right, Andy is wrong song. You know well, Kevin. Don't pretend you don't. Kevin, our producer.
So Moochie is the monkey's name.
Moochie is the actor.
And Adam is the character's name.
Which is another weird biblical sort of misappropriation.
Well, they're all, Ruth and Samuel are also, biblical.
But Adam was the first man. Why would you name the monkey that?
Maybe it's supposed to be we were descended from monkeys.
Oh, do you think it's an anti-creationism?
There's going to be a prequel.
Oh, interesting.
I guess we'll see in later episodes.
Yeah.
But anyway, we meet the crew. They are doing... they're on recreational time because this is another classic sci-fi thing. The monkey, who by the way speaks with like a weird voice box thing or something.
It seems like just based on the audio. And by the way, fantastic audio design.
Mm-hmm.
You would think that. Obviously that's the cheapest thing, that you should just have a competent technical or sound artist to create it, and then you can do it. Doesn't matter budget, but it felt to me as good as any sci-fi show of the time,
right?
With the sounds of the vehicles and everything, that classic kind of
right,
which is frankly what
People
electric cars sound like.
Yeah.
Now.
I drive a Buick. You have an electric car, so I don't know what they sound like, but I'll trust your judgment.
I didn't mean to lord it over you. My ecological responsibility.
Kevin, play the Andy Lording It Over Sean song. You know it by heart.
Ha ha. So, yes, I'm sorry, a huge digression for one point. When that monkey spoke, because already the monkey was beating the kid at chess.
Right. But not just ordinary chess.
Three-dimensional
chess.
Which that raised the question to me, were they allowed to use? Clearly, Star Trek had already done it. Is three-dimensional chess...
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's sort of a nod to, like, we're in a sci-fi world. It's not just chess, it's three-dimensional chess.
But it was something that had been established already in Star Trek. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering, did Star Trek invent it, or was Star Trek
stealing it from
the Jack 3D, the inventor of 3D chess?
Mm-hmm. I'm assuming, I could be wrong, I feel like it probably came up in some Arthur C. Clarke or Ray Bradbury story in the 1940s or something like that.
Apparently it existed for several decades as an actual real-world product before Star Trek actually had
there you go.
its version of it.
All right, they didn't steal it. So, good on them for not letting themselves be, legally vulnerable.
I take back what I said about Arthur C. Clarke.
But anyway, my thing that I was building to is he's not just better at chess. He's kind of teaching chess to Samuel, and he's sort of tricking him. He's crafty. And so I'm already in. I love it. And then when he spoke, I was like, this may be the greatest television show of all time.
Marty, what if the chimp speaks?
Oh my God. This is why I brought you on, Ted. This is the best. This is why I brought you on this project.
Okay, I'm going to let you go. It's 4 a.m., by the way.
But we got more to do. Come on.
I'm hanging up.
We're world building, Ted.
So then we meet the Flies for the first time.
Yes.
And they are...
Lord of the Flies, another...
Yeah.
Although Lord of the Flies is all children, no parents.
Right. And the Flies are going through the garbage, being bossed around by their leader, who is possibly parentless, but not a child.
No, he's an adult. And this is played by Jonathan Harris, famously Dr. Smith from Lost in Space. I saw that apparently later in the series, Robbie the Robot does appear in the series. So I assume they just rented the robot and then called it something else. But here he is playing a broad Irish stereotype, which I was thankful that it was not.
Well, I thought it was hilarious that here's this sort of panhandler type with a bunch of kids.
Yes.
And in my head, I'm immediately like, oh, this is just like Fagin and Oliver Twist. And then his name is Fagin.
But again, to protect themselves legally, and I'm beginning to feel like
an O.
I'm beginning to feel like the Filmation Department's legal department are the real heroes of this show. It's spelled with an O. They cover themselves.
But boy, he really was getting a lot of mileage out of that Irish accent.
Was he leaning on it hard. And I would expect nothing less from Jonathan Harris. But I appreciated that they were like, you know what? Let's not offend the Jews this time. Let's not make it a Fagin, an offensive Jewish stereotype. Let's make it an offensive Irish stereotype.
Right.
But the other thing about the kids and the trash, he pulls over a horse and carriage. Kids pile out. The trash, which is just like, this is how you know it's the apocalypse. Look at the trash on the side of the road.
Get everything. We need all the things to be taken to
Take all
the things. We've got to get the things.
Scavenge. But the thing that's fascinating is all this trash by the side of the road could not look more clean. That's like freshly bought discount like furniture. I think there's a sun chair in there. There's like
a laundry basket.
It's all as clean as can be, just placed carefully by the side of the road.
Except for one thing that's not clean, which one of the kids picks up, and it is a canister of poison gas, which we know because it's in the shape of a canister and it says on it, poison gas.
That's the telltale sign.
Yes. So they suddenly realize that they're about to be attacked.
Right.
By a group of horseback riders carrying lances.
Yes. And all of those, this sort of, what would you call them? Like kind of Viking / marauder. I don't know. What are they?
They're well, to me, they read as almost an homage to Native Americans in a sense.
Oh.
And
they did have bows and arrows. So they definitely had spears.
Well, they had swords too, though. Like it was just a weird.
That's why I feel it's almost.
They had spears at the beginning.
More of a kind of armies of Kublai Khan kind of a vibe.
Oh, I see.
But yeah, whatever the case, they're definitely.
Because one of them was definitely the QAnon shaman.
But they definitely speak. It's interesting how each character is like first thought, like what are their characters? How kind of speak like medieval, like everything's gone to pot. So they speak like kind of almost medieval barbarian sort of people.
This guy's a thief. He talks like an Irish person.
You can't trust them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And whereas the people in the Ark are the only educated people that speak, you know.
Almost like robots.
Yes. Okay, they are kind of like robots.
So these marauders are going to attack these parentless children, but Fagin convinces all the children to jump back into the wagon so he can ride away. It takes them a while to get everybody loaded into the wagon because they all have to put the trash they've gotten into the wagon before they get in.
That precious trash, for sure.
So they get the trash in the wagon, they jump in the wagon. The marauders are chasing them. The QAnon shaman is saying that Trump needs to be president again. He won the election. The election was fixed. And they chase the wagon.
Sean actively driving away a portion of our listeners.
That huge portion of Trump fans. Who were at January 6th. The wagon starts to, they're going to, I mean, obviously horses are going to catch up with horses pulling a wagon. Horses that are just being ridden by people are going to catch up.
I mean, sure. There's
But
no escape.
luckily, Fagin has smoke bombs. So he throws some smoke bombs, and all of a sudden the wagon disappears because they don't know where it went.
There's smoke.
Yeah.
Yes.
Their vision is obscure. But they yell after them, please keep out of our territory. Do not come in. So apparently there's divisions among the territory there.
I gotta say, this also is like, that's, we're having a bit of fun at the expense of this show. They start with the the opening VO. They get into the visuals of the vehicle. We're like, this is basically a just topping 20-minute show.
Mm-hmm.
They establish everything instantly,
very quickly.
The style is there. I'm a kid. I get a talking chimp immediately. It's a very efficiently written pilot in a way that many pilots, if not most, particularly of this era, you turn on one of these,
right? And it's
so
20
slow.
minutes of exposition. Yeah.
This is like you're in immediately, and they're into plot.
Well, and here's the other thing: is we get into Fagin and the parentless children, and
the parentless Fagin, I would have to assume.
I mean, we don't know. His parents could still be alive.
Yeah. I mean, Fagin
some people live a long time.
Fagin doesn't look that much older than the oldest children.
Sometimes you see
group.
pictures of Irish people, and they are just absolutely ancient.
Oh, you think that these just people have lived hard lives,
Yeah.
And they've been through the famines and.
But so we have Fagin and the parentless children. We have the QAnon shaman and the Marauders. What happened to our original cast? Well,
both great names for punk rock bands.
Just
by the way.
then,
Fagin and the the parentless children, and what was the other one?
The QAnon shaman and the Marauders.
Both great.
But we've forgotten about the star of the show, Ark II.
Yeah.
And just then, Ark II comes trundling along because they're supposed to be dealing with these parentless children, and they know that they spotted them through their scope or their binoculars or whatever they were using to look out the window.
And here's my immediate observation about that moment where they're going down the road, which again is just seems like a normal, fairly well kept dirt road, as everything in the show does. They're barreling down the road. They have to sort of steer off. It's kind of a mild turn away to avoid the carriage. Everything in Ark II falls off of its little placement. It's just like chaos, which, it's kind of, it occurs to me just like, okay, it's this incredibly this is the housing of all technological advancement remaining on the planet.
And it's fairly
There are
frail.
no shocks?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on in there?
But the good thing is that leads to the first big joke of the episode, which is Jonah says, "Is everybody okay?"
Yeah.
And the kid, whose name Samuel, says that my tailbone is where my jawbone is supposed to be.
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, Sean and I know this. If you're working on a comedy show, what you want to, sometimes it's uneven, but what you want to do is, if you have a real winner, if like this is going to kill. This is one of the set piece jokes of this episode.
Right. This is where
you want to
really
give it to your home run hitter.
Right.
So it's like, all right, Samuel, bring us home.
So it's not just about the joke itself. It's about timing. It's about delivery.
That's right.
It's
Samuel's
about
already
presentation.
He's built up his persona.
Right. We know who this guy is, which is why it's so crazy that he says the thing about his tailbone and his jawbone.
Now, what I'm interested in is, it seems like Jonah is probably the oldest.
Yeah.
And then Ruth is probably second, and then Samuel's probably like a teenager.
Yeah, I think so. And who knows how old Moochie is. Sorry,
That's true.
Adam.
Yeah. I drove us down that road.
I think chimpanzees can live to be 60 or 70 years old.
Is that true,
I made that up. Can we look that up, Kevin?
Kevin?
Male chimps about early 30s, and female chimps late 30s.
Oh, you were way off, Sean.
Yeah. But I will point out that the females always live longer than the males.
I mean, as in humans.
Men are the detriment. Yeah.
So I guess my question is, I thought it was like maybe at the top of this show, it's like, oh, is this sort of a makeshift family unit?
Right.
Then I realized they're all supposed to be sort of played as like they're all, quote, young people, even though it doesn't feel like that at all.
You think they're all supposed to be peers?
I think that's how it's.
I think you're probably right. Now that you say that, I think that's probably right, but it does not feel that way.
No. So I guess you could kind of read it more as like Samuel's kind of like the Robin to Jonah's Batman, and then Ruth is Batgirl.
I guess. But it's super weird because I did skip ahead to episode 7 when Samuel and Ruth are fucking. And
oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's quite a turn for the Saturday morning kids show.
That's why my parents wouldn't let us watch it.
I will also say all their outfits are hilariously like they're in the super clean white. Everybody else is filled with grime the entire time. The trash is cleaner than really what most of the people are wearing at the bedside of the road. And then they're in these perfectly white Logan's Run-y kind of colorful outfits. And Ruth's hair is it's like perfect Farrah Fawcett of the era,
right?
Like coiffed with a wave, kind of.
So they swerve off the road. Everybody is knocked to the ground.
Yes.
Jonah checks in to make sure everybody's okay. Then they step out of the Ark to see what caused such a kerfuffle, and they find some of the trash that fell out of the wagon when it was driving away, including the aforementioned canister of poison gas.
Correct.
Which again says poison gas on it.
That's how you know.
So Samuel says, poison gas, that's deadly stuff.
Yeah.
Hasn't been used for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
I like that everybody is so conscious of how poison is deadly and that they know when the last time it was used was.
And civilization had fallen, but they still remember the poison gas.
Right. But it leads them to a question. And Jonah points that out. He says, the question is, what were they doing with it? Do they have any more? And how do I find out?
These are all questions the journalist would ask.
I just like that he sets it up as the question is, and then says 3 questions. It's like, why be specific about the number of questions? Just keep going.
Sure.
I'm guessing that's stuff that was added into the script after it.
You think it was on the fly?
Yeah, went into production. They're like, there's more questions.
Right.
So.
And then, Terry Lester, the hero, probably said, well, I'm setting up one question, and then I ask, Terry, just do it. You're an actor.
See, this is why I hate being an actor, because it doesn't make sense for my character to say only these 3 questions.
Speaking of actors and behind the scenes people sort of taking each other's jobs, and Lou Scheimer actually did the voice, that opening VO, and he was the executive producer of the show. Oh. So I would love to know. And then it was later, he was replaced by Terry Lester doing the opening VO in the later episodes.
Lou, every time they play the show, you'll get royalties for the voice.
Oh my God, I got to do this. This is great.
The show is canceled, Lou.
Although he took the uncredited pseudonym Eric Gundin.
Well, that's because of what happened with Eric Gundin.
The great tragedy of Eric Gundin.
Mm-hmm. So Jonah is going to go find out what's going on with this poison gas, but they have a canister, and he tells them what you would say to somebody with a canister of poison gas, which is neutralize that gas, but not until you find out how bad it is. And I guess it is debatable. Like, it's poison, but how poison is the poison?
Yeah.
It's
always the number one question of containing a poison gas situation is,
right.
Well, maybe this is just, a slight allergy poison gas situation.
Is it deadly? Is it slightly discomforting? So he takes off, and that's when we first see the jetpack. He takes off in his jetpack.
Yeah.
To find out what's going on.
Which, again, they give us what we want. It's like, oh, yeah, the future. Fly around in a jetpack.
And he immediately spots the camp of the flies.
Yeah.
So he's going to go investigate.
I say, even now, decades later, the sight of a guy in a future outfit just flying around on a jetpack and it's very impressive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't know why we don't see more jetpack stuff today.
It's so true.
I mean, this was the 70s. Why are we not flying around on jetpacks these days?
Sean is honing his hunk. jetpack hunk.
Why have we not civilized the moon? How come we haven't filled in those holes in the Swiss cheese? Speaking of hunks. So then we break up we find out what's in the poison gas, and they literally list off a bunch of chemicals.
Yeah.
Which it's pointed out that is mean stuff.
Yeah. And it's what's interesting. One moment I like is they go, first of all, I love all the analog buttons and everything. The design is fantastic. But like that Samuel goes, let's neutralize this stuff fast. And Ruth kind of just sort of hands it off like behind some of the other devices into theoretically some kind of, container or some kind of chamber. But it's like, we don't have time to build the chamber. Just sort of move it off so we can't see it anymore.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, inside the chamber was a flour and a piece of meat. Is that right?
That's in the one where they're testing how poison it is.
Yeah.
Which is also very strange. Like, why on a piece? I guess it's something organic, but why a piece of meat? Also, wouldn't a piece of meat be in demand here in the post-apocalyptic world?
Not if you're on Ark II.
Yeah. Well, there is a subtle, for all their progressive perspectives, there is a subtle class distinction,
right,
that really feels acute when you see these people in these nice, clean outfits come out of their safe vehicle.
Right, and Fagin's crew is just a bunch of street vagabonds.
Yeah.
They just want more food. Please, sir, may I have some more?
Yeah. Just like Oliver.
I don't know what you're
referencing. Yeah.
So they neutralize the gas, and they figure out that when they neutralize it, it turns into laughing gas.
As it might.
Now, that was a big moment to me because I was like, I feel like they're setting up something with the laughing gas.
Yeah, I didn't see it. I was
I
just
don't know.
oh, all right.
What's going to happen, but somebody's going to end up, because they just had a sort of a hint of like, oh, this is funny.
Right. But they didn't play it out.
No.
They didn't burn their laughing gas real estate.
It was hanging over the rest of the episode.
Yeah.
And then we see that Jonah has found this camp, and he's approached Fagin and the children, and he's talking to Fagin and the children.
And they call him Fagin, but really they should be calling him Fagon.
Fagon, yeah. And it turns out Fagon is a sleight of hand magician.
Yes. In addition to his other skills, in addition to being a master of child labor.
Right. So he does some amazing tricks. He produces a bouquet of flowers.
Also as clean as can be, even though he's filled with filth.
Produces something else. I could not figure out what the second thing
sort
was.
Of a handkerchiefy thing, but
I thought it was like a balloon of some sort, but not inflated.
Definitely props fell down on their job in that moment.
And then he has Jonah tie him up, and he's easily able to get out of the knots that Jonah ties him up with. And then he says, now we'll tie you up and you can get out of the knots. And I didn't see this coming, but once they tie Jonah up, he can't get out of the knots.
Yes. And it is also part of the reason you probably didn't see it coming is it doesn't, when he's doing the trick, I'm like, I assume this is going to end up in them tying him up, although I don't know how they're going to get him to. I thought when
that's what I thought too. I know what you're going to say, and I thought exactly the same thing.
Well, then there's no reason for either of us to ever say it.
You need to say
it. Basically, he has Jonah tie him up, and I was like, well, it's in a weird position, but I assume that when they pull away, Jonah will be tied up and Fagon will not. But it's not that. He gets tied up, he gets free, and then he's like, now you do it. Or I said, now you. How do you say now you do it? An Irish brogue.
None of that was what I was going to say.
Oh.
So
I was thinking when they come back, then. So then what were you going to say?
No, I'm kidding.
That was what I was going to say. Okay, yeah. I sometimes miss.
Now it's your turn to tie yourself to the post.
There we go.
Yes, tie yourself to the post, and we'll see if you can get out to the knots. I bet you can. Oh, no, you can't. You're tied up.
Diddly die. See, this is what's crazy is, why would he? It doesn't track. Why would he say, all right, now it's your turn? Of course he's not going to get out of it.
Blue hearts, green clovers, poison gas canisters.
Now, at what point is it in this scene that the kids are like, well, we're also... he also sort of taught us to be pickpockets, and he sort of basically reaches into
scene. Yeah,
and that to me is like, obviously they're building on the Oliver Twist Fagin thing, but we've seen no evidence that they're also pickpockets, and there's more scavengers, and in addition to that, why are you gonna? How are you going to kind of get anywhere in this post-apocalyptic world being a pickpocket? Like,
Right.
nobody's got anything in their pockets. You're not in any crowded marketplaces.
There may be an episode later on where they go into Ark II and they pick the pockets of the people in there, like get some
they're
meat,
setting
some
it up.
flowers. Yeah.
See, look at the
I also
amount of-
thought it was clever that they did do this whole Fagin Oliver Twist thing, but then they also combined it with a David Copperfield thing
That's true.
of, this guy does magic. He can make the Statue of Liberty disappear.
Oh, I thought you were tying it to the Dickens David Copperfield.
Right. It's one step away. It's,
So you think that was their connection?
Yeah.
This was 76. This was pre-David Copperfield. It doesn't track, Sean.
We don't know how old David Copperfield really is.
Oh.
But you're right. It would have been Doug Henning.
So they were 14.
Tiddly tidly do. I'm Doug Henning. Look at me.
Oh, dead on Doug Henning.
Anyway, he's tied up. He can't get out. And that's kind of like the act break. What are we going to do next? Then we cut back to Adam and Ruth and Moochie, who are...
No, Adam is Moochie.
Oh, okay.
And then it's
Samuel,
Yeah.
Samuel, Ruth, and Moochie.
Yeah.
And
The Moochie fans have got to be enraged listening to this. Moochie, great performance, by the way.
Yeah. Right. He has a big moment later on, which really knocked your socks off.
Yeah.
But they are going to go out looking for Jonah. And so
I wonder if Lou Scheimer did the voice of Moochie also. He was really hoarding it all.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they did use a weird voice, so it could have been just him disguised, you know?
A bad choice, by the way. They should have done a cuter voice. I understand they were aiming for kind of a voice boxy thing. It was like, it's just not
Right.
good.
It sounded like he was a smoker who had a tracheotomy or something.
Yeah, which is sad.
But this was also before we knew the effects of tobacco, so,
Well, before some of us knew the effects of it.
Oh, right. Don't talk to, well, anyway, I don't want to get into family history. But we get a great long shot of the roamer coming out of the Ark II. The ramp comes out to let the roamer out. The ramp goes back into the Ark II. The door closes automatically. I mean, it's just this extended period of seeing things open and close on the Ark II.
Now, may I ask? See, I am delighted when I look at this, and I think this is the point when they're switching the buttons, and there's like compression adjust, disable display is one of them, and then the last one is infinite output. Just sort of see, I love all this.
Right.
This
I'm just
pointless
looking because
design.
I wrote those down too.
So
disable display, infinite input, compression adjust, and there was also, don't forget, BMC thousands.
I couldn't quite read the top one.
That
That's
was
what
the
it
top
was.
one. Yeah.
I love the car. I love all the vehicles in this. They're really great design, I think.
I don't disagree, but I just felt like once the ramp came out and the car came down the ramp, we're done with that. Let's have the car go. We couldn't do that. We had to watch the ramp go back in, the door close, then cut back to another shot of the ramp still going back into Ark II.
There's also the pointless, like, when they get out of the roamer, the side door on the roamer opens up. It doesn't go all the way down, I assume because of some technical issue where they couldn't make it go all the way down. Oh, what did you do? It's supposed to be a ramp so you get out of the car. It's just sideways, but it's still cool looking.
In the meantime, Fagin has made his way to the village of the Lords, I think is what it's called.
That's right. It's all the world building.
Yeah. And
You can see the map, the sort of Winnie the Pooh-ish map, of like, oh, this is the village of the Lords, and then
Right.
this is Fagin's village.
it feels like a big world, but everything is like a minute apart.
Of course.
Yeah. And he sort of taunts the Lords because they're like, oh, we're going to kill you and eat your parentless children or whatever. And he's like, apparently you've never heard of poison gas. And that's when...
Of course, we've heard of poison gas.
Yeah, I have heard of it. And he pulls out the mask he has, which is going to protect him from the poison gas that he stole from Jonah.
And the whale.
Makes his demands that he wants to be the Lord of the Warlords or something like that.
Yeah, Lord of the Warlords. Which is, it seems like a bad plan that you're carrying around this canister of poison gas. Yes, you have a gas mask, but it's like, I don't know. It's like to them, it's just magic. Like they don't know how it works. So he's just saying, I'll kill you all instantly. And the question of how tactically he's going to pull that off is never in question because it's like, how are you going to maintain control just holding this can?
Right. And then we're back with Moochie and his gang, and they see that there's something bad happening, but they can't get up there in the roamer. We don't see why not, but
Right.
clearly they tell us there's no way the roamer can make it up there. We got to go up there on our own.
Right.
So they get out of the roamer. And
Which again is like, I think these things are built to look cool. They are not built to serve any of the functional purposes you would think a supercar would have.
Right.
In show, in world, like not outside the world, in the show. It's like, well, we can't go that fast. It makes a cool sound.
Right. So now they're at the village of the warlords.
Yes.
And they have to somehow distract
Well, the village of the lords.
the village of the lords.
He
sorry.
wants to be
the warlord of the lords of the
Lord
warlords.
of the warlords. But this guy, Lord Brack, he is at the village of the lords.
He's at the village of yeah.
The rest of the warlords are at the village of the warlords. I would assume.
It's very Some of them
There's
are
a
in
lot of-
some of them are in the House of Lords.
Look, Game of Thrones, it takes a long time to catch up and
Yeah.
figure out, oh, this is this, and this is
Right.
this house.
House Umber.
Yeah.
King in the North. So they have to figure out how to get these people to let the other people in. So that's when Adam Moochie, the chimpanzee, really goes into action.
Yeah, this
And
is his moment.
He runs down into the camp or shambles, however you express the way that a chimpanzee locomotes.
Trundles?
Yeah. He gets into the camp and he says, "Okay, let's go, follow me," and steals a couple of pots.
Which is the only problem I have with that is why is he saying that to them?
Right.
Just say, I'm going to take this. You'll never stop me.
Right.
It's more of a taunt.
I'm stealing your pots.
Yes. Look, this is what I'm doing. I'm stealing your pots. Plot device.
Okay, let's go, follow me. I guess we got to follow him, Dave. He took the pots.
This is not a trick. I am not tricking you. Follow me.
They chase him. I got a little lost at this point of like what exactly was going on. It was very hard for me to follow.
Yes. I think plot-wise, at this point, it's just sort of like, all right, well, we want this. We want to have another jetpack scene. We want to have another, and then we'll sort of
They're
wrap
talking
it
to
up.
Jonah. They're going like, the gas is more powerful than we imagined. They're talking to him. I think they were talking to him on the radio by then. I forget even how he got out of his ropes. Did he talk somebody into letting him out, or what?
No, they rescue, right?
They rescue him. Oh, maybe that's what it is.
Yes.
They steal the pots from the kids.
And then the kids chase the monkey.
The kids, two of the kids chase the monkey, but the other kids
chimpanzee.
decide they're going to go to the warlord village of the warlords.
The village of the Lord village of the warlord village.
Right. And Jonah's back up in the jetpack. The monkey gets away from the kids by climbing a tree. I guess they didn't know that monkeys could climb trees.
Is there some kind of are they afraid of liability here? This great Filmation legal department, that monkey's up in the tree. Like, yeah, probably the monkey's going to be okay because he's a monkey. But
that might have been a stunt monkey.
Yeah,
they might have used a different.
Is a monkey a chimpanzee, or is a chimpanzee a monkey rather?
Mm-hmm. They both are.
No, Kevin's giving me a no on that. Can you confirm on that?
Yeah, I don't have to Google this one. The chimps are not monkeys, and monkeys are not chimps.
I don't think that's true.
Kevin,
but anyway,
Kevin, I think we just found out is obsessed with chimpanzees and monkeys.
Yeah.
Or just has the requisite tiny amount of knowledge about animals that I do not possess.
Right. Well, it's like whales and sharks. Like all whales are sharks, but not all sharks are whales.
Yeah. Neither is the other one. Do you mean mammals?
I'm talking about whales and sharks. So the warlords have captured all of Fagon's boys. He has the poison gas. They're testing his power because if he releases the poison gas, he'll kill all his boys. Is he going to do it? Is he not going to do it? They say he's not going to do it. The Ruth and Sam and
Jonah,
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, whoever it is that is in the crew, decide that he's not gonna do it. And of course he doesn't. He hugs one of his boys. He can't release the poison gas with his boys there.
which is a perfect use of Jonathan Harris, because that really does feel like a perfect like Dr. Smith like I'm evil. I'm evil. Like, no, I don't know. I can't. That's too evil.
Right. His heart grew 3 sizes that day.
Yeah.
Do you agree with me? Because as I was looking at him,
Yeah.
I never watched Lost in Space as a kid. I mean, I remember now that it was Dr. Smith, but that didn't hit me
He
while
was
I was...
so immersed in the performance.
Well, it didn't hit me while I was watching. But you know what I was thinking the whole time is he looks exactly like Sean Penn.
Which era? Which part are you?
Fagin in this show
Yes.
looks like Sean Penn now.
The modern Sean Penn.
Yes.
Interesting.
Just
Interesting.
weathered and like
Yes.
he does. He looks like him. His protruding features.
Right. So it's like
not Bad Boys Sean Penn.
no. It's what is that? What's the one where they were Westies? State of Grace.
State of Grace. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he's sort of that performance.
With Timothy Oliphant.
I actually don't think he had a very Irish brogue in that.
Mm-hmm.
Timothy Oliphant's in that?
No. But all sharks are whales. So anyway, they now have captured Fagin and the kids, and that's when Jonah and
The whale.
the whales roll in and spread laughing gas around. They have a plan. They're going to use laughing gas on the warlords.
And I believe he has a statement that's your classic TV tropes must have a way to a description for this kind of statement of the almost inorganic teeing up of thinking about the laughing gas of what we need is a gas of our own, one that can work miracles. And Samuel says, "Oh, I've got just the thing." It's
Right.
the laughing gas. Miracles is also a little bit strong. So, all right, so you turned on some laughing gas.
Right. You got the warlords to giggle a little bit. That's not a miracle. I feel like QAnon Shaman laughs to himself all the time. You know, I've seen the footage on the Capitol. So the flies are no longer flies. They are now young gentlemen, which is a bizarre way to describe them at that point. And he tells them that they have to go off to school.
And this strikes me because he says it in a way, Fagin says it in a way that like implies, now you'll go to school, or now you'll go to school, as though he was not.
Now you'll go to school.
I don't think it was that was the accent. In a way that really like suggests like, you were the one calling the shots the whole time. You could have educated them at any
I
point.
finally got what I wanted. You'll go off to school instead of trundling through garbage the way you do.
It was my plan the whole time.
But that's very exciting that they get to go to school.
And it's funny that they, having no idea what school is, are still like, no, boy, we got to go to school.
Right.
It's like, weren't you just praying you could get a full meal like an
And
hour
then
ago?
the two guys in the back are like, I'm 47. I don't need to go to school. I don't even shave anymore. But then we have, I guess, who is the producer who does the voiceover stuff?
Lou Scheimer.
So Lou Scheimer. Although, no. I think it's Jonah who then reads his captain's log again and tells us
I see, yes.
that the weapons that man designs for use against others, it's the same lesson we've learned over and over again. And really has nothing to do with pollution, which is what it feels like the show was about to begin with.
Right.
The weapons that man designs to use against others can be turned against himself.
So they got that point, and then they crammed in the thing about for some reason the 10 seconds of laughing gas allowed the oppressed workers of the village warlord to rise up, completely change the entire system, and put Fagin in charge.
It was basically Bastille Day, like the proletariat took over.
They've been waiting for decades
and they beheaded the warlords after a trial by jury or whatever.
For a tiny amount of laughing gas to be released in a 10-foot radius.
The rain of blood. And this was my favorite thing probably in the whole episode was as Jonah, the captain of the Ark, is dictating the log into I have to assume that it's like Star Trek where they dictate into a recorder of some kind.
Sure, there's a button that they push called Ultra Recorder.
Right. It says Ultra Recorder thousands.
Yes. Release the BMC thousands.
But he says as he's reading it, he says, and so henceforth and so on and therefore signed Captain Jonah, whatever. Like, I just think Jonah B12 or whatever his last name is. I just think it's funny that he dictated signed into the recorder.
It's being sent back to headquarters, which is, by the way, I don't think it's ever made clear, other than ship is the final hope of humanity, and this is where all technology is based. It's never made clear
who's behind all this.
Is there a larger, institution? Is there some kind of organization? Is it just that these three somehow, with their smarts and the chimpanzee smarts, put all this together? Mm-hmm. It's never made clear. So maybe for a future episode.
But we do learn the lesson that be careful what you wish for because it may come true.
Is that the lesson?
Or I don't know. There's a lesson there somewhere, though. Something is a lesson about weapons that man designs can be used against him.
Yes.
Be careful.
Just don't keep striving forward to build the best poison gas canister, because that's going to bite us in the ass at some point.
Abolish all technological advances.
Yeah.
It's really an anti-AI thing, I think, that they were doing.
Way ahead of their curve. Mm-hmm. Way ahead of their time.
So I think people should watch Ark II to get a sense of what the world will be like in the 25th century. I also wonder, do you think that they had a crossover episode because wasn't Buck Rogers in the 25th century?
That's a good question. I bet you that's where they derived
that particular century,
that specific century.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with Buck Rogers in the 25th century, the TV show?
A little bit,
because I was obsessed with that.
Yeah,
so we should definitely do that.
Well, I'm a huge Mel Blanc fan, so
Twiki,
mm-hmm.
beady. It's an interesting question, because I did love Buck Rogers and I was obsessed with these kinds of sci-fi shows. If I would have appreciated this at the time, it has a lot of elements that I would have loved. Or would it have been like, I don't know what's going on in this show. It seems kind of janky and weird.
You think as a 7-year-old child, you would have felt uncomfortable with this show?
Well, you got to remember.
I'm just guessing how old you were when this came out, but
you got to remember it's also the next year is when Star Wars came out. Mm-hmm. So it's an interesting question of like, if you saw this the year before, maybe not even, it was in the fall of 76. Mm-hmm. You saw this just before, would not having seen that much. Well, I guess there were movies that had much better effects. So it's just an interesting question of like, would it have bumped me? Now it delights me.
Right. Not in the sense of like, oh, this is amazing, more in a kitschy sense.
Yeah, that's the question. Is that what I like? Yeah, I guess that is a lot of what I like. But I like the commitment to just going for it. Like, they really didn't have the money they needed to make this, and they went for it, and they created this whole world in a way that, like, even pointing out my question of like, well, where did they come from? What's the thing? It didn't occur to me watching this, and it definitely wouldn't have occurred to me as a kid. Mm-hmm. So you don't really need that.
I just think it's great that they managed to work in so much, so many literary references like Lord of the Flies and Fagin. I mean, the next episode, I don't know if you read ahead, but the next episode was about a traveling salesman named Gulliver. So
interesting.
Yeah. The one after that was about a young man who was an artist who made a portrait of himself.
Interesting.
So they really worked those literary references in there.
Well, Sean, would you have picked this up if you were a network president?
I think at that time, yeah.
You watch this pilot.
Although I guess your point about Star Wars is well taken. It's like the sci-fi world had not really taken off yet, No. After Star Wars is when everybody was like, oh, we got to do this type of space opera.
Yes. Buck Rogers, definitely. The TV show, definitely.
And Battlestar Galactica.
Sure. But this predated it. In some ways, you could argue George Lucas
set the precedent.
George Lucas stole this.
Yeah.
With his big monkey character. Chimpanzee, god damn it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and also with biblical names like Skywalker and Kenobi.
Yep.
Both found in Leviticus chapter 7.
There's a lot of Bible woven in. It's just it's appropriately subtler. Anyway, there you go.
So check it out. Leave us comments in the like and subscribe, and send us some fan art.
We love fan art. Sean and I driving the Ark II, or maybe probably the Roamer is probably better image.
Yes.
Maybe one of us is a warlord, one of us is a
Fagin.
Fagon.
All right, we'll see you next time on this show. I also would like to plug my other podcast, which is called Butler Did It, and it's an exploration of the works of Gerard Butler.
When are we recording this?
I'll plug it at the end.